It's Gadget UK here again. Short update on the Prelude card here. Wrist strap is on. We're on the knee cam here. So Kavanos kindly sourced some new crystals for the MPEG module here. The crystal, and I talked about this in part 2, I think the crystal speed that's on there is not quite right. It's something like 14.325 megahertz, and it should be 14.76 something or something like that. We'll cover the exacts in a minute. But the point is, the result of that means the MP3 side plays at the wrong speed. Now, at the time of editing part 1 and part 2, even though we were aware there was an issue, we ended up swapping, I'll just take this off, we ended up swapping the MPEG chip. There were a few things here worth pointing out. There's 2 different revisions of this. The one that I fitted on there had a different subcode on the end. I'll show you that in a minute. The net result is we improved the MP3 side by doing that. It was no longer sounding vibraty and like distorted and stuff. I don't think there was a fault with that chip. I think there's 2 different versions, as I say, it's different subcodes, and they behave subtly differently in terms of the frequency that is fed into them, from what I understand. So as a result of this, on the A1K forum, some of the guys investigated there and dug a bit deeper, found there's these 2 different revisions. They behave in different ways and need a different code, I think, actually. So there's a new driver available that might work with the original, you know, the slower clock speed here, 14.318 megahertz, and then you can use the original chip we had on there, I think. But some of the guys were saying, well, actually, you might need this one to work with the new code at 14.318. Anyway, long story short, we've got a new crystal from Kavanos that is, I think, nearer to, if not exact, frequency of what was originally on the original cards, 14.756 megahertz. And that equates to, there's about 2 or 3% difference in speed, I think it is. So we haven't got the vibration issues with the revision of MP3 decoder we have on there at the moment, but what we have got is a speed difference, and I hadn't noticed that. Glenn, who's a DJ, check out his channel down below, I've talked about Glenn a number of times, CRG, he built one of these, and because he's a DJ and he plays this, you know, the music that he was testing quite a lot, he noticed the difference straight away. It's the sort of thing that he would pick up on really quick. Now, I thought I would pick up on something like that really quick, but I'll be honest, I listen to MP3s like literally never. You know, it's like, now I've got the 4000, listened to quite a lot in here, but, you know, in the last 10 years, I've hardly listened to music, I never get time. So I wasn't aware that there is this percentage difference in speed, and that translates when you do the test on this. That's one thing where it's evident, most evident. You know, when you do the test and it goes, it plays like a range of tones or something. It does the WAV first on the card, the crystal, and then it does the MP3, and I'm like, it's a bit slower. It's noticeable there, and yeah, that translates to MP3s. You play MP3s, if you are familiar with the original MP3, you'll notice it's about 2 or 3% difference. So, going to fit this crystal here. We have the socket that accommodates either in part 2. We'll get that in there and just see if that works. And this came from Kavanos, by the way, all the way from the US. The guy is a legend, and he sent them to Glenn over at CRG. And then Glenn sent me 2 of them and a few to other people as well. So massive thanks to Glenn for sending them on, but massive thanks to Kavanos for sourcing these crystals. I don't know where he's managed to find them, because I couldn't find them anywhere. So I've switched this off. We're testing with the A4000 that was a 3-part series recently, 4-part actually. I think there's an extra part that coming up soon. And if we get this into one of the Zorro slots here, I'm going to go for the 3rd one down. Just carefully get that in, wrist strap is on, and we've got the ripple here. You may or may not have seen that. At the point when the video for that's gone up, there'll be a link top right. There'll be a link to the top right for part 1 and part 2 of this as well, and in the description. Yeah, I haven't got the MPEG module on yet. Let's change the crystal. It's a good job I picked that slot, isn't it? Because otherwise there'd be no clearance. So yeah, pin 1's bottom left here. It's the same between these 2 different crystal types. You know, we've got the square, 4-pin device here rather than that one's based on like 14-pin. And when I say 4-pin, it's 4 pins, yeah, but actually in terms of a dip socket, it's actually the 8-pin format. So pin 1 bottom left. And as I said, I've wired this socket in such a way that it accommodates either of these. So that should be it. It's fairly firm there. Let's just try and squeeze it under there, make sure it's all correctly aligned. Yeah, I just a sense check there, just checking the TV screen to make sure it's not switched on. That's it, MPEG module is on. I'm going to go get something to stand under that, I think. Let's just see if I can squeeze this under there, because there we go, it's just going to sag down. There we go, let's stop it from sagging. Yeah, that crystal is now touching one of the chips on the underside there, which is why it's raised a bit here. Yeah, you can see that. So I'll need to cut the legs down a bit on the crystal. It's out by 3 or 4 millimeters, so the legs are really long on the new crystal. I mean, I can show you that on this one. If you look at the length of those legs there, they're massively long. So to fit into a socket, they need to be half as long as that. Yeah, so we're booting with the compact flash card that I used previously on the 536. So this is set up with the Prelude drivers and everything. So, and I think this might be the first time we've tested it on a 4000. I don't know. But it's the same build with the same drivers and stuff that we tested previously. And I got these cheap Acer speakers wired up here, so we should get some sound out. In fact, I'll switch that on. There we go. And they're powered by USB, by the way. Anyway, let's switch it on. Hopefully nothing will go up in flames here. Just watching under there, see if I can see the LED flashing. Yep, it's flashing, so it's booting. I mean, technically I don't actually need to have the ripple in there, because, well, we've got the IDE on board on the 4000. I could just boot from there. But anyway, it's a good thing to test them both together. Now, I didn't get the error here. Previously I'd got an error on Prelude Library on launch for the mixer, and that's not happening now because it is correctly detecting the Prelude. So I'm going to try some I'm familiar with, so I can't play very much of these. Well, initially that is working, and it sounds the right speed, I think. Sounding perfect to me. Let's just stop that before I get a copyright strike. Well, I'm going to close that down. I've got a keyboard connected, and I'm just going to do the PRL check. So previously, before we had this hopefully correct speed crystal, there would be a speed difference noticeable between the WAV test and the MP3. Let's run that. So we're on the 4000 now, remember. Yeah, I think you'll agree those are the same speed, and there is just a quality difference. Just turn that down a tiny bit, because you know what, it was kind of rumbling a bit, it was so loud at the start there. But those sound the same to me now, so that's hopefully fixed it. So I don't need the new version of the driver, the new library. That sounds fine. The tone has changed. So yeah, there we go. You can get the correct speed crystals. Speak to Kavanos on my Discord. I don't know. I'll see if I can find a public link to communicate with him, to work out where he got them from, you know, so that you can ask him to buy one or where to purchase one from. So you've got two options. I'm not going to cover the second option. The second option is to install the newer library. And the newer library just compensates for the speed difference between the different revision of chip, you know, the MP3 chip that you may have fitted to yours. So you might, you know, there's two different ways of looking at this. You can either change to the revision I've got. I'll stick a still up here. You can see the one I fitted in part 2, I think it was. And that works fine with the correct speed crystal that Kavanos sent me. And there might still be a slight difference here. This is the thing I'm not pointing out here. Is this 14.756 might not be exactly the same as the documentation, you know, the tech specs for that chip. I'll stick it up there where it should be, and if it is right, great. If it's not, then, well, we can't get any nearer. So you could leave the 14.318 megahertz crystal on there and use the newer library, which takes into account the difference. But that's where I'm not sure about which revision of the MP3 chip you need. And here is the other interesting point with this. Let me just turn that down. Yeah, 1 kilohertz test tone sounds the best I've ever heard it. Now what I can do now is get an app on my phone that has a spectrum analyzer built in, record that, and just determine, is that 1 kilohertz? Right, so I've got Spectroid here running on Galaxy, you know, it's an Android phone. We've got the WAV file first, so this is the one that's clean, it doesn't have the cut-offs. 1001 hertz. So that's the WAV. Now this is where it's going to jump around a bit because the MP3 stops because of me copying and pasting the bleeding thing. Yeah, let's try again. And showing you on the MP3, 1001 again. Yeah, so off camera I'll trim down the legs. Can you see they're squashing out a bit there? They're just a bit too long, so I'll trim those down. We may come back for a part 4 on this, because we still have pretty noisy microphone and line-in recording and stuff, so some more tweaks might need to be, or could be done to this still. So watch this space for part 4. I do hope you enjoyed the video. There'll be links in the description and pinned down below for part 1 and part 2. I hope you found the video interesting and useful. I'll catch you in the next video. If you'd like to support the channel, please see the Ko-fi and Patreon links down below.